And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
We're running out of names for games, I guess. But anyway, I'm not sure if copyright infringement is going to occur. Well, this is in Korea, but here's Blockbuster. No, this is not a video rental place, but it's a game, and it's about blocks, and I'm not really sure how they're busting anything. The game it comes with some pretty neat blocks. They look like Legos, except when you look on both sides, they go out on both sides, and that's because they're going to be placed on this board with indentations, and you can put them on either way. The game initially feels a bit like Blocus, in that you have different shaped pieces and trying to put them on the board, but it ends up being more of an area control game. Let's look at the board. This is the board and how it looks when you're playing the game, except nothing has been put on yet. Instead, you're going to be putting on these symbols on the board, and these symbols, you will be maneuvering the pieces around them. This is the 4-player board, and if you're only playing with 3 players, then you would only use this much of the board. If you're playing with 2 players, you only use this much of the board. And players will have a variety of pieces that show that are made up of different squares put together. Again, these look kind of like Tetris pieces, but they can go as small as just one little block. And players are going to be placing these on the board. The first player to go starts at a significant advantage, so they take these point chips. If it's a 2-player game, they get 5 negative points to start the game. If it's a 3- or 4-player game, they will start with -3 points. And then even the second player in a 4-player game starts with a negative point, because again, there's a disadvantage. Now, when you're placing your first piece on the board, you can put it anywhere you want. After that, all pieces have to be adjacent to one of your other pieces. You simply put them right next to each other, as long as that's a possibility to do. If, for some reason, you're trapped and you have to jump over another piece, you're certainly welcome to do so. For example, here this piece could jump over this, like this, but it's jumping over 2 blues, so it has to take 2 negative points for each square that it jumps over. So that allows you, if you get trapped in a horrible position, to kind of recover, but you're still taking a pretty heavy point cut to do so. So it's a pretty tough game in that regard. You can easily get trapped, and at the end of the game, you're going to lose 1 point for every square that you don't get on the board. So, for example, this T would cause a person to lose 5 points. But the point of the game isn't necessarily to get all your pieces on the board. Rather, it's to surround pieces, including diagonals. If you have the most squares around any one of these pieces, then you win that piece. If you win 1 piece, it's worth 3 points. If you win 2 that are the same color, that's worth 7 points. If you win 3 of the same color, that's worth 12 points. And if you win 4 of the same color, you automatically win the game. I've never seen it happen. I can't imagine that can even be remotely close to happening with this, at least with this board setup here. But it's still there, I guess, for foolish players. Now, the piece can be won, and they come off the board at the end of the game, basically, as you win them. And that's just a quick way to determine who wins points. So at the end of the game, you're going to get points for each of these that you control. You'll lose points for these, if you have any of those left, and you lose points for victory points. So a game can look very interesting. Now that wasn't a very good game per se, because I was putting out all 4 pieces, but that's exactly how a game may play out. You'll notice here green jumped over another piece, and there they would lose 2 points for doing that, but green was getting hemmed in by both red and yellow. And really the game takes place on 2 levels. On one hand, you're trying to expand as quickly as possible so that you don't get hemmed in, because you want to get all your pieces out. But on the other hand, it's really important that you control as many pieces as you can. Now, we're not going to count out the scores for this game, but you can see, for example, here in the middle, this piece is surrounded by different colors. Green has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Red has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and blue has 1. So this piece would be awarded to green. And since green also has won this piece and this piece, that's a whopping 12 points for them. And had they won 1 more of those pieces, it might have been worth it. In fact, it might have been worth it for green to jump over here and do something to try and control this last piece here, although I'm assuming blue would have stopped him. Now, this is a very simple game, but sometimes that double level confuses people. On one hand, some people get so caught up in trying to surround pieces that they forget about spreading out. Other people get caught in spreading out and forget about surrounding pieces. I don't know. I think it's a good combination of both. I think it's a very good abstract game with some really cool-looking pieces. And even though putting the piece next to another piece seems odd compared to Blocus, in which they're not allowed to touch, but still, it works really well for this game. Blockbuster is not a Gemblow or a Blocus ripoff. It's its own game, a game of surrounding area control and of placing pieces on the board. I really enjoy it. It's a very colorful, very easy abstract game. It works well with 2, but I most enjoy it with 4. But even with a 3-player game, seems to work okay, although it's best with 4, then 2, then 3. But still, a colorful game, easy to get on the table, easy to understand and play, but some pretty in-depth strategies. So this is definitely one you should check out, Blockbuster.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.